The bucket tipped before Daniel Cole could stop it, and in that one frozen second, he watched 11 years of careful, quiet survival threaten to spill out across a stranger's desk along with the water. He had mopped this floor every night for 3 years. He knew which tile squeaked, which trash can overflowed by Thursday, which office lights stayed on past midnight because someone inside was still working, still trying, still fighting for something. He had never once touched anything on a desk that wasn't his to touch. But tonight, exhausted from a double shift and worried sick about his daughter's fever back home, his hand shook just enough. The bucket tipped. Water rushed across the polished wood and straight onto the laptop of the one person in the building whose name made every employee straighten their spine, the CEO, Victoria Hayes. She spun around from the window where she'd been standing, phone in hand, and for a moment there was only shock on her face. Then came the anger everyone expected from a woman who had built an empire out of discipline and control. But as she reached for the laptop, trying to save whatever she could, her eyes caught the screen before it went dark, and what she saw there stopped her breath entirely. It wasn't spreadsheets. It wasn't quarterly reports. It was a video call, frozen mid-frame, of a little girl in a hospital bed and 4 taped to her small arm, smiling weakly at the camera. Daniel had left his phone charging on the corner of that desk 20 minutes earlier while he emptied the bins, forgetting he'd never ended the call to his sister, who was watching his daughter through the night so he could work. Victoria stared at the image long enough that Daniel's stomach dropped even lower than the spilled water already had. If you believe some people are fighting battles the rest of us never see, and if you believe in second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because there are so many more stories like this one waiting to be told. Victoria didn't yell. She didn't even mention the laptop. She asked, quietly, who that little girl was. Daniel's voice cracked as he explained, his daughter, 6 years old, fighting a rare blood disorder, in and out of the hospital for the past year while he worked nights so he could sit with her during the day. He apologized again for the water, for the mess, for the inconvenience, bracing himself for the words he'd heard before from other bosses. You're done. Clean out your locker. Don't bother coming back. Instead, Victoria sat down at her ruined laptop, unbothered by the damage, and asked him to sit too. Nobody had ever asked Daniel to sit in that office before. He'd only ever stood in doorways, waiting to be dismissed. But that night, something shifted. Victoria told him, in a voice far softer than the one employees whispered about in the elevators, that she had lost her own younger brother to the same illness when she was 22, before her company existed, before the money, before any of it meant anything. She had spent years building walls so high that nobody could see what still hurt underneath them. And somehow, a spilled bucket of water had cracked one of those walls wide open. She didn't fire him. She didn't even write him up. Instead, she picked up her phone and made calls that night to specialists she had once relied on, doctors who owed her favors from donations her foundation had quietly made for years. Within a week, Daniel's daughter had an appointment with one of the top pediatric hematologists in the state, an appointment families like his waited months, sometimes years, to get. Victoria covered what insurance wouldn't touch and never once mentioned it again, never asked for thanks, never made it about her. Daniel kept mopping those floors, but something had changed in the way he walked through that building. He wasn't invisible anymore. Victoria began stopping by some evenings, not as his boss, but almost as family, asking about his daughter's treatment, bringing small gifts for her hospital room, a stuffed animal, a coloring book, once a small blanket stitched with stars. The other employees noticed. Nobody understood exactly what had happened that night, but they noticed the CEO smiled more, and the janitor stood a little taller. Months later, at the hospital, Daniel's daughter turned to him after a treatment and asked why the nice lady with the kind eyes kept visiting them. He didn't have a simple answer. All he knew was that a moment meant to be his worst, a moment of humiliation and fear, had somehow become the doorway to the kind of grace most people only read about. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that kindness can hide behind the most unexpected doors, Please take a second to like this video and share it with someone who needs to believe that people can still surprise us. Your support means everything to this channel. And before we go, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us, do you believe everything happens for a reason, even the moments that feel like our worst mistakes?